Hey everyone, it's Ken Pulse with you, and today I'm going to show you something that we encountered in the most recent Ask Ken Anything session that I run with my self-service Business Intelligence Academy. And in this particular scenario, one of my students brought in a solution that they had inherited from someone else, and it was originally in Power BI, but I'm going to show my demo in Excel anyway, just because I find it a little bit easier to control the data when I'm trying to switch things out on a regular basis. Now, the root of the challenge was that they were trying to compare sales and budget numbers, but these things weren't comparing properly. When they put things onto their matrices or their visuals, they just weren't lining up right. And it came down to the way that the model had been constructed and the way that somebody had tried to work around a problem, which actually introduced a new problem into the model. It was all about an extra bridge table that, as it turns out, didn't actually need to be there. So, what is the bridge table all about? Well, bridge tables work really well when you have two separate fact tables that have different granularity of fields that you're actually trying to match. So let's say that we've got a sales table that has dates, items, and amount, and we've got a sales items table that has item and category, but our budgets are actually built at the category, not item level. Because there's a many-to-many relationship between the items category and the budget category, it helps if we can go and insert a new table in between that has the unique category entries. And this will allow us to have a bridge between the items table and the budgets in order to be able to filter based on one-to-many relationships. And that works really well in scenarios that absolutely require it. But what I want to do right now is I want to show you what the person's data looked like, at least in form, not their actual data. So if I hop in here, we actually have some sales data. We've got some categories and amounts here. And then over here, we have a budget key, but you'll notice that the date field here is not a true date. It is a year-month format, not an actual year-month-day format. So what the person who built this model did is they said, well, I've got this data, can't change it because it comes from SQL that way. So I'm just going to go and put in a bridge table to bridge between the budgets table and my calendar. And this started to cause some problems. So if I go and I take a look at a couple of different comparisons with the output here, we're going to see on the first side, this is my sales and budget comparison that I'm looking at, where the year and the month short fields have been pulled from our calendar table. And what you'll notice here is that my sales value appear to be correct, and my budget value appears to have the grand total on every single row, including the grand total rows. So that's obviously not ideal. Meanwhile, we've got this budget bridge table, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But on this one, the budgets are actually correct for the year and month, but the sales values are vastly understated. Why is that? Well, let's go and take a look at the data model, and hopefully this will actually start to make some sense. So if I hop into the data model, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at the calendar table. And the calendar table is fairly straightforward, right? We've got a bunch of dates. They are at daily granularity. There's no gaps inside here. It's got the appropriate month short and year values that go with it. Just a standard calendar setup. Meanwhile, though, our budget bridge table looks like this. We have dates, but they're month-end dates only. So there's no individual dates in between these. Okay, so that's part of the problem that we have here. The second part is we have this date key field. Now, this is a text-based key, which is intended to link to the text-based field on our budgets table over here. Okay, so when we pull the whole thing together, the data model looks like this. We've got our date that is going to be filtering the sales dates. We've got our budget bridge, which is linking dates to our date field in the calendar table. And then we've got our date key, which is going across to the budgets table. And in order to try and make this so that, we could at least appropriately put the different fields on this thing, the person who built it actually also put the year and the month name on the budget bridge, because obviously we would need those to be able to filter things. And if you start filtering from here, you get this grand total problem. So why? Well, the first part is, if you are using fields from calendar, we can't filter the budget value because it has to go against this one-to-many relationship here, which can't happen. So anything that we select here cannot filter this, which means we get grand totals from budget. The second part that we run into, though, is when we're filtering based on the date key here or any of the fields in this date key, it restricts these values in date down to the month end values. The month end values get pushed down to here, which eliminates all of the daily values. So we lose everything except the month end values. And that's why we have these understated sales values when we pull our fields from the budget bridge. So what's the true solution to this? Well, the true solution is not to leave our budget in the incorrect date format key. Why don't we convert this to a real date so we can link it directly to the calendar and avoid the budget bridge altogether? And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So I'm just going to go and close this down here for a second. I'm going to go and pop open our query editor here, and I'm going to hop into the staging budget table. This is where the budget data comes in. And we're going to see here, when I take a look at it, here is that textual date key. And now, depending on what this date key looks like, whether it has dashes in it or not, you might need to do a little bit more manipulation of this. But remember, Power Query is the great data equalizer. It is here to allow us to reshape data into a format that we need versus what we actually get from the database to begin with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this easy right now. This one's super simple. I'm just going to convert this to a date. And Power Query will look at this, assume it is a month-year format. It will add a day to it, which is the first of the month. Now, as it happens, I prefer to do my budgets at end of month. So I'm just going to go transform date month and choose end of month. And there we go. We've now got a nice month-end value. Now, I need to make sure that this updates the budget table because right now I haven't made any changes to the budget table. So Power Pivot's not going to get a refresh because Power Query says, well, hey, nothing's changed. So we're going to hop in here. And I'm just going to go and make a small manipulation. I'm going to Control A to select all columns here. I'm going to go to Transform, Detect Data Types. We'll add a change type step to force this to be a date. Now that this query has changed, it will force a reload through the data model. Of course, I absolutely could have done this with a data refresh all anyway, but this just takes that off my plate. Don't have to worry about it. I'm also going to remove Budget Bridge. Don't need this query anymore. We're just going to go and delete it, make it go away, and boom, there we go. So now we've got our Power Queries in good shape here. Going to go home, close and load, and commit these query changes. And what we should see here is that we've lost our budget bridge. It's gone, so it'll remove that from the data model, and the budget table is going to refresh. And at this point, it removes all the fields that we were using from the budget bridge table. Now, why are the grand totals here different from what's going on over here? Something doesn't appear to be right still. So let's hop back into the data model. The big issue here is that we just haven't recreated the relationship. So if I go to date, drag it over here, this should work nicely now. There it is. Let's go back to Excel and boom, the table updates quite nicely. Now, of course, we'll still maybe notice these values do not match what's down the bottom here, but that makes sense because I've filtered to one specific year. So if I remove that, brings back all the values and we can see the grand totals indeed do match, which means I no longer need to have the second visual here for my information. I can now quickly slice and dice and everything is working correctly to compare sales and budgets. So the big thing here to remember is don't over-engineer your data with a bridge table. If you can manipulate the original source data, you may want to add a new column. You might want to transform a column depending on what you want to do with that underlying data inside the fact tables or in the dimensions themselves as well. But the big part is we don't want to end up adding too many levels if we don't need them. Add the bridge table when you have a true many-to-many relationship you're working around. But if you're just trying to go and translate data, it's often better time to just go and manipulate it with Power Query to get the right data in there to drive your data model in a better format. So there you go. That was a cool little tip that we got to share in the Ask Ken Anything session. Hope you found it useful, and we'll see you next time.